Okay, so you're all welcome. I think we'll just hit this, and maybe in the next few minutes we'll be done. Now, today happens to be a very significant day for us, being that today is our birthday, and so typically people gather to celebrate. In fact, the celebrations have been on for like forever, so to say. But however, a birthday for me is not just about a celebration. That's the purpose. Why were you born? Why are we on planet Earth? What are you here for? You know, that's what gives meaning to it. It's a time for reflection, a time for considering your life, your essence, and so while we could as well have had some big dinner and different things, there's something of greater importance to me, and it's that which my life has been about. And yes, my life has been about many things. Number one being the kingdom in particular, people, humanity generally, but Cross River State, the destiny of Cross River State is a big thing for me. It's something that I've literally lived for, and I'm passionate about it. So as we age and make progress, you were thinking more in terms of the state, the destiny of the state. Where are we as a people as compared to where we ought to be, you know? And destinies do not just happen. They are made to happen. Just like an individual's destiny. That you are destined doesn't mean it will happen. You'll have to understand the destiny. You have to align. You have to pay the price and do the needful if that destiny must happen. So same applies to a corporate destiny, like the destiny of Cross River State, which means as a people we must understand what is our destiny, what's our collective destiny. You must define it, you must understand it. God does not make mistakes. God is incredibly meticulous, incredibly organized. God is a God of purpose. God does not just put people together for the heck of it. No, there's an assignment. There's what they exist to fulfill. So as Cross Riverians, as people in Cross River State, we must know what that is, then align with it and become interested in fulfilling it. Otherwise, we'll be just like anybody else, floating people in the wilderness. So of course we know what it is. And then the other thing is about being committed to fulfilling it. And people through time have played diverse roles towards the advancing or the advancement of that destiny. So that brings me to one simple thing, which is the essence of this, and that is the Premier Destiny Cross River Awards, which is coming up on the 2nd of October 2025. Premier Cross River Destiny Awards. What is it really about? There are many things to it, but majorly it's about celebrating landmark and legendary contributions, you know, towards the actualization of the destiny of the state. So we're celebrating men, celebrating organizations, celebrating efforts that have been made, you know, towards the advancement of that destiny. But number two part of it is to immortalize sacrifices and, you know, inspire generations. You're dealing with a time when people are so concerned about self, so concerned about what is in it for me, you know. But when you think in terms of the destiny of a people, the destiny of a land, you can do that without being selfless. And we need to understand that carrying the burden, you know, or even having the privilege to pursue the corporate destiny of a people or a land is about the highest attainment anybody can hope for and dream for. It doesn't have to, you don't need to have something in it for you. But if there's something in it for your land, if there's something in it for your generations unborn, if there's something in it for posterity, then it should be worth even your life. And that becomes very important because that is not common, and majorly is a thankless and selfless path to travel. So very few want to walk that path, but we must walk that path because no nation is built by politicians. No great nation has been built by military might. No great nation has been built by the scientific excellence of the people. Great nations through history are built by patriots. In other words, people who love their land enough and will lay down their lives for the good of their land and their people. If that is not in place, you don't have anything in place. You may have the best brains, you may have wonderful politicians, you may have great whatever, but it's never going to happen. And so what you celebrate is what you attract. What you celebrate, increases and multiplies. What you fail to celebrate will diminish. So until we begin to celebrate patriotism, celebrate these selfless sacrifices, celebrate these contributions that have been made by the lives and are still being made by some, then we'll not see more people traveling that path and walking that road. So the 2nd of October is that big day that we're going to do that, and the premier event is we're going to celebrate basically just about call it 3 people or 4 people in all right. Leading the park is the governor of Cross River State, His Excellency Senator Prince BASSEY Edet Otu. Now, this is not going to happen because he's the governor of the state. No. We're not going to celebrate him because he's the governor of the state. No, that's not the reason. It's not political. I'm not given to politics or any of those. But here is what is going to happen. Senator Prince BASSEY Edet Otu took over the leadership of this state at a time when Cross River State was in her darkest moment, her darkest season. Virtually everything was in ruins. Desolation had overtaken the entire, spectrum of the state. So the contributions that have been made may not be understood by people who were not in a place to appreciate the desolation. I was in a place to appreciate that desolation. I spoke against the desolation. I fought against the desolation because I knew the level of havoc that was done. As a matter of fact, it was something that ordinarily we wondered if we'll ever come out of it, because it's like a situation whereby we're going on a trajectory and we're taken almost like 50 years back. The pain concerning that to those who cared enough is still real till tomorrow. But you see, by the time the governor came in, the job he's had to do has been the job of an undertaker, the job of a deliverer, the job of rebuilding, the state from the pit in many ways. So this for us is very significant, because for me, the destiny of Cross River State has been my business, and anything that touches it touches me. I lose sleep, I can't eat. It's that bad when things are wrong there. So also we are able to appreciate these things, and we think, look, is worthy of commendation. Let me tell you the different things that the governor probably could have done on assumption of office. He probably could have ignored every other thing that was wrong and decided to travel that path of seeking for self-recognition, projects that people will readily say, oh, this is what he has done, which is what many do. If you're not secured as a leader, you think in terms of that. You think that it doesn't matter what effort I put in here, the credit will be given to someone else. They'll say it was this man that did, this other person that did it. That's what happens when you go into repairs. And many times, repairs, maintenance can be far more costly, far more demanding, far more expensive, far more technical than having to start a brand new project. I'll give you a typical example. What has gone into the rebuilding of the governor's office? I mean, you don't need to talk about any other thing that went wrong in the state. When you think that what was the governor's office itself was in decay, was desolate, nothing to touch, it was that bad. Now, what has gone in there to maintain that? You're a journalist, you have the facts, go check it up. It would have been easier, it would have probably been better to probably build a brand new thing if you're seeking self-glory. You build a brand new thing and that will stand through history that, oh, it was Senator Prince Bassey II that built this during his time. But when you carry out repairs, maintenance of the kind that has been done there, it wasn't just repair, it was rebuilding that's being done. But the credit, if you want to go by credit, will forever go to UJ Swene, right? Good. But that is what Prince Otu has done. And it takes a leader that is secured, who thinks in terms of the good of the state, the good of the people, to say, look, if it has to do with Cross River, if there was an investment of Cross River State in that project and it went bad, we must see how to rescue it, we must recover it, we must reposition it. That's the kind of thing that has gone on across the various, so I'm saying this, I'm trying to explain, because a casual onlooker who doesn't understand the depth could think, well, yeah, Destiny Cross River Awards, the award goes to the governor because he's the, no. It's been carefully examined, analyzed, the reports before decision was made that, look, over and above everything else, we will not even be talking about Cross River State today as it is if, number one, we didn't have a governor who understood and was willing to embark on the rebuilding and restoration, putting us back on the path and trajectory of growth and of glory, where people can, so that's number one. But then we have, is a day that we're going to honor Chief Anthony Ani, again, one of the patriarchs, one of the patriarchs of the development and evolution of Cross River State. And also Professor Kelvin Etta, and then Sir Kanu Agabi. Now, if you know these men and you know their pedigree, now part of what we think and part of what we seek to achieve is, you see, there's a generation rising who, some of them, if we mention, like the names you mentioned now, some of them may not even know them. And for those who know, they have no idea of the sacrifices and the contributions that these men had made towards the evolution of Cross River State. That there was a time when what mattered to people was, look, what can I do? What sacrifices can I make to see that my state becomes better? And they did that with their personal, resources, not from holding any office in some cases, From the days, like when we talk about, maybe if we talk about Chief Anthony, some people begin to think about him only, or his days as minister and all of that. No. When he was, from his days as chartered accountant, as the, what do you call that now? Partner of Pete Morwick, Ani Ogunne and Company, which was the foremost chartered accounting firm in all of West Africa. The sacrifices, the personal things done. And then are we going to talk about Professor Kelvin Etta? Or are we going to talk about Kanu Agabi, for instance? So this day is set aside, 2nd October, set aside to celebrate the destiny of Cross River State, to celebrate, like we said, celebrate sacrifices that have been made and also inspire generations. And we shouldn't only gather when men have left us, and then we now have, tributes, and we tell their tales and stories and good deeds when they can't even hear, when they're no longer there. It is better we celebrate them, celebrate our heroes, celebrate our champions while they're yet with us. But in this premier edition, these are our primary focus. The subsequent ones, we will do something else. We will accommodate some other category of people. But this is for legends, real icons in every sense.
Expose. You reveal a lot of things that some of us didn't know, especially on the aspect of the accounting firm as it concerns Chief Ani. Thank you very much. I wanted to ask a question in the direction of how the award will take shape and the subsequent awards, but you answered that by telling us that maybe subsequently you do other things. Well, that's that. But I still want to take you back on what you said on the issue of the fact that no nation is built by politicians, and that nations are built by patriots. We are in Cross River, and I've been here for some time. I've seen us not growing when it comes to business or entrepreneurially. We tend to have a lot of young people all running towards the direction of politics. Every young man, most young men you meet in Calabar want to be SC. So the politician will now have 5,000 SCs. And the present administration is also towing that line. So many SCs. What is your take when it comes to young people, instead of going into areas that would develop the state, but rather want to just run after one politician and carry his bag and just get paid? That's one. And secondly, it's not just a Cross River thing. In Nigeria now, well, in West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the growth of the church is seen by the number of churches we see on the streets. Now, you go to a very short street, you see so many churches. Well, I don't have any problem about that. But the issue of having so many churches and less productive things when it comes to, not like the churches are not productive, things that can create employment. We don't have industries. They're not growing. And even in Cross River, you go to a particular place where we have our industrial estate by the former administration. I thought by now we'd have some more companies. We're still where we are in there. No growth. But when it comes to the church, we have so many. How is that going to impact the growth we all expect, we all want? Since we all know that politics or politicians will never grow the state. Or patriots, not just the name patriot. What are the patriots doing to grow the state? So from these two angles, how do you think we can push this state forward, which of course is what you are fighting for?
Okay, now two things. Number one, when you talk about how do we deal with the issue of a lot of young people and so on wanting to become ACEs instead of engaging themselves in more meaningful, productive adventure. Very simple. That what is going on is a sign of a failed system. It's a sign of a failed system. If you have a nation, an environment that does not encourage, support dreams, visions, and make for ease of vision actualization, then things are going to go wrong. So that is part of what that problem is, which means that as a country, as a nation, as a developing nation, this is common with developing nations generally, if you get your systems working, your institutions working, and you ensure that the environment supports dreams, support vision, then that narrative will change. And then next to that will then be the issue of advocacy and right orientation. Let me give you an an example. You see, when it looks like the only thing that is working in an environment, in a system, is politics, then everybody wants to do politics. Because it looks like that's about the only thing that the system supports that's working. So that can be changed, and that will be changed from top down, actually, as we begin to actively crusade for the change we want to see. But let me also say this. Solving that problem is going to require that the youths get their focus right and fight right. Now, every generation must identify their battles and fight it and win or be enslaved. The various battles of this nation have been fought at different times by different generation of youths. Unfortunately, in the last 10, 20 years, we have seen a breed of youths that are unwilling to fight any battle. They are not willing to die for anything. They are looking for cheap comfort, cheap leisure, and they are not willing to die. And then they are expecting that their fathers, who fought their own battles as youths, should now fight for them or be the one to change things for them. It doesn't work that way. It has never worked that way. That is why if you check what goes on in Nigeria, most of the people who are still relevant today are the people who fought, who started being relevant when they were young, because they fought. When you fight and win, you rule until a shift takes place. Unfortunately, no shift has effectively taken place because the average youth out there is not focused on what should be focused on. Is not willing to fight any battle. Is not willing to die for anything. Which comes back to what we have said. Who is a patriot? A patriot is essentially somebody who is deeply in love with his land and his people and is willing to die if need be for it. So patriots is not limited to old or young. You can be a child and you're very patriotic. You can be old and you are not. So that's the thing in dealing with that. Now, to talk about talking about churches and the fact that you have churches almost everywhere, and that becomes a concern. Now, I don't know why that should be a concern, and I'm going to explain. The business of a pastor, the business of any true child of God, is to populate the earth with the Christian faith. So I will take it as a commendation that you actually mean that the churches are doing very well as far as the assignment is concerned. And if so, what we should rather say is how to challenge every other individual to learn from churches, to learn from pastors, because what you are saying indirectly is that churches and pastors and Christians seem to be the only people who are effective in the assignment, who produce something out of nothing. Because when you talk about a church, if you understand how a church functions, is essentially, if you want to put it in a secular parlance, is about being community organizers. That's a very tough call. Go and try. But to be a community organizer, running a system or operating a system that is that functions on what we call the ultimate leadership. What is ultimate leadership? Ultimate leadership is you being that leader that people follow you, not because they have to, not because they must, but they follow you because they want to, out of their free will, which is the kind of leadership you have in a church environment. People follow because they want to. If they don't want to, there's nothing you can do. You can't query. You can't do anything. If somebody wakes up tomorrow and says, I'm not doing anymore, there's nothing you can do about it. So which means your leadership must be top notch. You must know exactly what you're doing. You must be doing it right. So it then means, to the credit of the churches and the credit of Christianity, to the credit of the faith, that in the face of the darkness, the church is shining as light. And some people, instead of thinking about learning, quarrel with that.
Well, I'm looking at it more from the impact on the society.
The impact is alarming. If the church pulled out today, you won't survive. The only voice and the only beacon of light, of hope, of strength and encouragement on a consistent basis that you have in this nation and in most developing nations is the church. The first government that the average individual in developing nations actually knows and can reach is the church. Because when something goes wrong, in the life of an individual, many times they may not be able to reach their president, their governor, their senator, their this, but your brother in the church, or if the church runs a cell system, your cell leader. The world outside has no idea how the church really runs. The church is a government, and if you want to get interested in the church, then get initiated into Christ and get born again, and then follow that path, and that is it.
This session had been an eye-opener, just like my colleague has said, Christian Njoku. Over the years, growing up in Calabar, I think I've come to know you as one of those lone voices out there who, will I use the word, speak truth to power. I remember sometime in 2018, consistently you've been criticizing the past administration, and there was a time even when the then governor moved to APC, you also made a statement and that it was a personal business, that it wasn't a collective decision or something like that. Then at some point, in short, you've been at the edge of always speaking truth to power, especially when it has to do with the past administration. Now, looking at the award that's coming up next month, the composition of the awardees, isn't it a thing of concern that first, you are from the south, and two of those awardees are southerners from the same local government area. I'm driving home a political view, especially because of what is trending now in the space. And currently, there's this cry of nepotism, especially from the incumbent governor. His appointments, especially, in short, that cry became at the height of it when the new head of service was appointed, which also is southerner and Efekson for that matter. And a list of several appointments that were given to that tribe was reeled out, and a lot of agitations. Then the people of, I think, Ikoransa also put up a protest just this week, when the Subeb chairman was changed to another Efek person. And just a few days ago, 400 names were reeled out as beneficiaries of the 800 million naira grant from the governor. And there's also a cry on social media that these about 300 of those names are southerners. So there have been this cry for or against nepotism from this administration, and you're giving an award, and 2 out of 4 are from the south and from the same local government. We also know the Udupani stuff, which has to do with the governor, the Senate, and the House of Reps and all that. Then I don't know, how do you tend to marry that? Then as a follow-up to that too, maybe people may not be, it may not be too out there in the open. I don't think there is a cordial relationship between the governor and Chief Tony Ani, given the fights for the Obong chiefs too. And after the court cases and everything, the governor stood firm with the incumbent Obong of Calabar. And that alone should have an effect with the relationship between the governor and Chief Tony Ani. Is this a way of reconciling both individuals or the two brothers?
Okay, now, number one, I do not hold brief for the governor of the state or the government. I'm not a government appointee. I'm not a government anything. Like you already said, talking about, if you understand my antecedents for decades, I don't I don't mince words, and you cannot tell me what to do. I function purely based on my convictions. I answer to God, and I answer to my assignment and my mandate. So we don't go outside of our purview. So I'm sure that some of the questions you've asked, you actually will need a government appointee or people in government to respond to that. But I'm going to say this. While we try as much as possible, while we would try as much as possible when we're looking at the state to factor in those things as to north, south, central. Now, if you write an exam in school and you're in a class and you write an exam and this one comes first, this one comes second, this one comes third. Even if you were three brothers and one came first, the other came second, the other came third, you're not going to say because you're brothers. So we take it from this, and it doesn't work like that. Now we are looking at, if you understand those names that have been mentioned and you know who they are, their depth, their weight, and what they did. And now I think it's actually mischief if you do not notice that first, all these men are old and advanced, and that for very obvious, the governor stands alone there, because of something that we've mentioned that is pressing. How do you ignore that and get into petty, unreasonable sentiments? We'll be talking about Cross River State today, if maybe we still remain in the pit. So before you begin to talk about anything, you should also be able to appreciate the fact that somebody came on the scene, saw the mess for what it was, and decided to travel a path which is not common. And I explained that. We've had governors who came in and refused to touch anything that the previous administration did because they just want to chart a path for themselves. And that amounted to waste, because it means whatever monies the state had invested, the previous administration invested is gone. They want to create something for themselves that people will say, this is this, But that has not been the case. So how does that relate to what you're, sometimes people just intentionally want to be mischievous. And so they turn a blind eye to truth that is staring them in the face. It doesn't make sense to me. And then number two, talking about, I don't see how that plays. We're talking about destiny awards. In case you do not know, my primary consuming drive has been the actualization of the prophetic destiny of Cross River State. So whether we're speaking truth to power or pushing for anything or advocating for anything has that to do with the state, it was towards the actualization of the prophetic destiny of Cross River State. So all we are saying is, look, let's identify and celebrate the men and women, of course, who have made landmark contributions towards this in the past, towards inspiring, this generation and generations coming, And while it's a celebration of, like we say, it's a celebration of destiny, a celebration of progress. So we're not seeing what you're seeing, and if you see it, then that becomes your call, not ours. All right. So that's it. However, I don't also turn blind eyes to things that happen around the state as far as the state is concerned. Having said all of that, recently he said, the head of service was appointed. Good. Was there anything that was violated in that appointment? Is there any known civil service policy that was violated? Is there any? Okay, the answer is there is none. There is no place that, states that when a head of service, and it's a political appointment, but it follows statutory provisions. When a head of service tenure expires, recommendations are made to the governor, and it is the governor's prerogative to appoint from among the people recommended in the exercise of his office. And that's it. And that is exactly what happened. But I am shocked about it, and I didn't want to talk about this, but since you've brought it up, is that I'm surprised that anybody will be talking about nepotism in Cross River State right now. Because the first challenge I'll ask is go and bring out the comprehensive records of, employment in Cross River State and see what happened. Now you're talking about the fact that you have a system that is running. In the previous administration, the civil service was dead. We had people who were recruited into service with university degree, right? And they entered service level 12, 13. And I'm surprised that with such madness, that an individual did not do up to 5 years and was a permanent secretary, and with such madness, people were not talking, you were not fighting. I think it's pure mischief, because there should be a balance, And this is where we need to redefine our kind of politics, really. Here is my point, if you ask me. You see, if you come in and you are from maybe Central or the North or even the South, and then what you do is think that you should fill the place with people from the Central or the North or wherever. Now, by the time you finish doing that, and that happened, then automatically what you should do by the time you're done with that is that you have made up your mind that in the next 16 years or so, any other person that comes should not be looking in your direction, because should now be struggling to now create a balance for that imbalance that was created. And then by the time another person comes from that zone, the same thing will have to continue until you come to a point where you say, okay, this will have to stop. Because while some people may be saying, oh, this is what maybe the present administration is doing right, doing wrong, you'll be shocked that many people from the South are quarreling with him and we're thinking that he hasn't done anything. That look at what these other people did. That normally, when these people come, they do like this and do like this and throw caution to the wind and so on and so forth. And they expect that you should do exactly that so as to create a balance. Otherwise, you've not brought about fair representation. So fairness then becomes being able to balance, the wrong that was done.
Many politicians and many religious leaders are endorsing the current administration towards the 2027 elections. And you made mention that this award is also going to be given to the governor of Cross River State. So I would like to know, for clarification purposes, I would like to know, how sure are we that this award is not going to send a message that your organization, religious organization, is technically endorsing the governor for the general elections? And we have also seen when religious leaders also allow politicians to use their pulpit to canvass for votes for themselves. How sure are we that this is not also the case in the award?
Because a man's antecedent and pedigree should speak for him. How long have I been on this stuff? And how long have you been around? Because if you know, then you'll know that I've been involved in almost every administration in the last almost 20 years or so. Right? Good. It is on record that I would hold event, I feed, or we have dinners, have events, and people will come who we sue, governors and all of that, and we'll finish. And I don't take a dime from it. I spend my money. So I don't know there's nothing anybody can offer. I'm not looking for anything. There's nothing I'm looking for at my stage in life. All right? If I'm hungry, I'm living amongst my people. I believe that if I'm hungry today, and I say that I am hungry, there should be at least one or two or more people who will be glad to send me a cup of Gary or so. Don't you think so? So I am. That is totally out of the question. But here is the thing. When someone has done something, if you were about to die and someone came and rescued you from death, I don't know how you now say it is. You now have a problem with saying that this is what this person has done. It becomes a problem when you say somebody has done something the person hasn't done. We are not talking about 2027. No. We're not even talking about, I don't know what will happen by 2027. But I'm saying that something has happened in the last 2 years that has changed the face of the state, has restored hope, has restored institutions. Because really, when you begin to think about a government, a government is only as strong as her institutions. Today you can make projections. Today you can wake up and say, okay, what is our IGR? You want to track what is going on. Today, EXCO meeting can take place, and at the end of it, you know that, okay, this is what took place. These were the discussions. This is the approval. This is the direction that government is going. It's not some mythical and magic thing going on that nobody has a direction and has an understanding of what's going on. That's not the folly we are talking about here. Which then creates opportunity for you to ask questions, make intelligent contributions when necessary, and so on and so forth. So when you come from the land of the dead to the land of the living, God expects that you celebrate and appreciate. And then, because that's a way of saying, hey, this thing that you have begun to do, this thing that you're doing, stay on this course. And I think that coming from someone who, if you get it wrong, I will tell you, you are wrong, you're getting it wrong. It's only right that when you also get it right, we say, okay, you're getting it right. That's the fairest thing, I believe there is to do. When you're wrong, we say you're wrong. If you're right, we say you're right. If we don't know whether you're right or wrong, we keep quiet and watch until we are sure. The legacy foundation is really about the things that we have stood for. I can tell you this, traveling the path I have traveled and living the life I have lived in this period of my being on planet Earth has not been the easiest of things to do. Because many times you're misunderstood. Many times you are fought. Many times people think you are their enemy when you are indeed their friend, and so on and so forth. Because you're traveling a path that is not easy, that is not normal, but you always look at the bigger picture, the greater picture. So the foundation seeks to perpetuate, the things that we have lived for, the things that we have pursued, such that, and put systems and structure in place, such that years after we probably would have been gone, those things, those ideals should continue. I give you an example. Like we talked about the previous administration, and you must know, as a father, I love every Cross Riverian. I love everybody. And so when we talk about the previous administration, we have nothing personal as it has to do with the leader of that administration. But we're looking at the system, the state, you know. Now, so, but when we had to address the things that were obviously wrong, everybody knew it, you know, but nobody was willing to take it on or think that, look, this thing, we should do something about it, you know. So you now realize when you travel such a path that you are literally alone in a state of almost 4 million people, and not because you are the only one that sees it, that feels it, that understands it, but it's more like, okay, you're the one that is willing to die, you know. And it shouldn't be the case. I believe that we need to be deliberate about encouraging many others to rise, you know. You simply need to understand that, look, if it's good, then it's worth dying for. If it has to do with the collective good of your land, your people, or even humanity, then it should be worth dying for. And no man is truly worth the life he or she is living if that individual is not living for a cause that he or she can die for. You're not better than a beast. Even beasts would die for something. Yeah, so that is exactly part of what this is about. This is part of what these awards and part of what the our Legacy Foundation seeks to do, which has so many other sides to it. Since we are talking about the award, so we've just tried to focus only on that and not on the general, the broad spectrum activities and objectives of the foundation. But the foundation is into different things. The foundation is into humanitarian services. The foundation is into empowerments. By empowerments, you know, when you say empowerments, out there you think empowerment is about giving people money. You know, that's not it. You know, the first level of empowerment is mental empowerment, when you can create a mental shift and develop, creating people the capacity with which to generate results, generate revenue or income in a way that wherever you throw them into, they can stand and they can even see a future for themselves. Then you're doing a much better job, which of course, I think that the major institution that does that in Nigeria and does it for free is the church. It's the church only that does it. What the church offers for free is what, if you go online, someone will tell you, give me 30, I'll give you 30 minutes and give you a talk or counseling, and at the end of the day, they charge you $1,000, $500, master classes. That is what churches do for free on a daily basis, and they're changing the minds of our people, repositioning people. So, but I'm saying that empowerment is, you know, much more than just giving somebody. And if you give somebody money, now, you give a poor man $1 million if you're poor in the mind, because poverty and wealth is a mind game. So if you're poor and you're given $1 million today, it's just a matter of time. The $1 million will leave you and go to those who have the wealth creating mind. And if you're also, you don't have anything cash and you have the mindset to create and attract wealth, it's just a matter of time you'll be able to generate that. So the foundation does, you know, is broad spectrum, like we said. There is advocacy, there is peace and reconciliation, there is orientations and reorientation, there are interventions, you know, rescuing vulnerable people out of different. So it's a broad thing, but we are on the Destiny Cross River project, and that is so key to us.
Daddy, I would want to ask, you had made a statement and said that the business of politics is too serious to be left in the hands of politicians. And you have been at the forefront of talking to power, and frontly and straight so. How would we have a whole lot of younger people who seem to see politics as the glamour of the day, because they see people who go in there and then plunder, leaving what is meant to be done undone? how do we get to having young people have the mindset of patriot, being a patriot in such a sphere of influence like politics, in line with the Prince BASSEY Ederutu position, as you see him as a one who has paid his dues in terms of patriotism concerning the sphere of influence politics. How do we get young people inspired into being dead and delving into the realm of politics and standing tough to become patriot?
All right. I think that as a society we have a value problem, and we need to work on changing our value system, because you see, every society begets the kind of youths, the kind of leaders, the kind of citizens it deserves, actually. So we need to work on changing the values. What values are we pushing? If we are pushing a money value economy, money value society, which makes money, just money for the heck of money, the big thing, then we are going to have all kinds of things. Like the Bible will tell you that money is, the love of money is the root of all evil. So when money is played up and it becomes the obsession, becomes the driving force, then all manner of things will thrive. But we have to get back to where things like name, things like purpose, why were you born? Now, we are having this discourse today. Today is my birthday. But instead of having a birthday, I'm saying I rather want to celebrate others. Instead of celebrating me, but I rather want to invest time, energy, resources in celebrating people who have paid the price, who have done things. Why? Because there is a future. Now, every one of us here now is just a matter of time. None of us will be alive. So the question then will be, when we are not here, who are the people who will take over the systems that we created? Who will run the institutions we have built? Have we programmed them, their minds, to be able to handle that? Because if you lay down your life and maybe create a system, create institutions, and the succeeding generation, you know, their values are totally out of sync, they will wreck it. And so whatever you did in that 100 years of your life, 80 years of your life was just a waste. And so you understand why a success without a successor is a failure. So when we begin to think holistically, holistically means everything affects everything. So you don't look at something happening and say, well, it doesn't concern me. No. Everything affects everything. What that your neighbor is doing or not doing is going to affect you in the long run or the short run, whether you like it or not. Everything in this sphere affects everything. And then number two is the fact that tomorrow matters. So what we do straight is, number one, I've talked about value, and intentionally, there must be intentional systems and structures created. As a matter of fact, we must become combative at addressing this. There must be mass reorientation program, but that mass reorientation program must happen in active partnership also with we must engage systems, we must engage governments, because some policies are necessary to be tinkered with. Some structures maybe need to be put in place by governments, and by that I mean from national right down, you know, because part of the problem too, when you have poverty weaponized, you know, when people are thinking, all they think about is how to eat, you know, then they can't think straight. But you know, you can also channel hunger rightly. If you think about how to eat and realize that, and you're able to think straight and realize that, look, the reason why I'm not able to eat, and the reason for this poverty is because of this failure here, this failure here, this failure here. Then you can channel your energy right and fight. You are either going to be an Esau or you're going to be a Jacob. If you are an Esau, you will lay down your birthright just to eat and get away. If you are a Jacob, then you'll be willing to go hungry and even become a servant ultimately, because the part of the consequence was having to run and become a servant, but then retain in the long run a name, a destiny, and a posterity.
You just said something about channeling your hunger. You know, I want to take you out of Cross River State. As of this morning, the news that we heard about the president was the fact that he is identifying with the Palestinian state. I'm saying this because we are talking about the church. And as of this morning, a lot of people are saying that shouldn't be our business. That we are also having similar problems, that the Palestinians and Israel, they have their issues, well, and a lot of Christians are, well, no, we shouldn't do that. We should just be silent. Now, to you, as someone who is a Christian and a church leader, what is your take in that direction, even as it concerns us also having our own issues here? And we have not channeled our energy properly the way we should channel it, and we are looking at other issues. What do you think? Do you think the president is in the right direction in his accepting, the Palestinian state?
Okay, number one, I know enough to know that if you don't sit on a desk and have all the facts before you, you may not be in a position to say whether this decision is right or wrong. Because sometimes there may be considerations that overriding considerations that you know nothing about, which informed a decision. However, for where our country is and the challenges facing us, I think that there are some things that should be prioritized. There are some things that should be prioritized, and we should be clear about them. Prioritizing them. What are these issues? How do we intend to fix them? And it shouldn't be rocket science. It should be something that everybody knows. So we can have a trajectory. Say, look, in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, that's where templates come in. Because when we all understand this is where we are going, this is what is happening, then we can get it right. But I said something a while ago. Every generation will have its own battles to fight. You are a failed generation when you blame your fathers for what you're suffering in your day, because your fathers did not blame their fathers. They fought their own battles and made their way out. There was a time when the crucial thing was the fight for independence. Some youths fought for it. That's why if you check the age of the of our Nnamdi Azikiwe, the Obafemi Awolowos, they were all in their 20s, thereabout. Youths fought. So the independence now were fought for by the youths. You look at the military incursions and all of that, youths. So the question you should be asking is, as youth, I think the youth should first be talking and say, wait a minute, who are we? What is the battle we need to fight? What battle are we even fighting? Are we fighting any battle? How come we're not fighting any battle at all? There were days when when the student union was a very powerful force, could grind government, even military, and all of that. But what do we find now? You have youths who are, in university and are thinking about different things, totally out of tandem with the good of the state, the good of the land, the good of the people, which still takes us back to patriotism. Who is willing to die? Who is willing to bail the cat? Well, life is about one thing. It's about purpose actualization. It's about dying to ensure that the generation after you meets the earth, meets your space better than you left it. And one player can't make a team win. All the players must work in sync for it to happen. So on this day, I want every Cross River area, and I want the government of the state, I want people all over the world to know that they matter. We celebrate them, and we celebrate every contribution made by every agent of light towards making this blue planet better in whatever way. And we need to do a lot more. We need to synergize a lot more. The future is brighter than we can imagine. But that brightness depends on what we do every passing day to make it happen. God bless Cross River State. God bless the government of the state, and God bless every Nigerian and every child of God around the world. Thank you very much.
I thank everyone.